Hey friends, it's Bill MacDonald, the reading and writing doctor. What I'm hearing from a lot of you is that you're having to cover a lot of skills for reading and now to begin preparing for editing and revising, and lots of different types of short answer, constructed type responses, and you're having very little time to do it in. Some of you have an hour to teach all of those skills, and without enough quantity of time, you're not going to have quality of instruction. So sometimes you have to figure out just to do the best you can and learn how to merge lots of different skills together so that you can be able to get some concepts across to your kids, that you can work on reading and editing and revising at the same time, because starting next year, all of you who are ELAR teachers are going to have your typical amount of reading passages and questions to go with them for comprehension of the content. Then you'll have 6 editing questions, and or you'll have 6 revising questions. And of course, those of you in, I believe, 4th grade and higher, I don't think that 3rd grade has paired passages. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but paired passages is when you look at 2 different passages, the introductions, the bodies, and the conclusions, and they ask you questions about characters or events or situations or uh, information from both passages. So what I want to do today is use a part of my Dear Doc English Language Arts reading and writing binder that's in the back in the reading section, where you merge those 3 worlds of reading, editing, and revising with quotes, with words of wisdom, what some of you call truisms. So I want to try my best to share that with you. So I'm going to share the screen right now. I'm using Zoom, so I'm just going to share a portion of my screen. I already went to page 629 of the binder, and because we're transitioning to reading and revising and editing together, I changed all of my dear wows, my daily editing, and what used to say revising of words of wisdom to daily editing and read-vising. That means we're going to do a little bit of reading, understanding, comprehending, and revising, either adding, removing, replacing the content, or editing, improving the conventions, the grammar. So part 1 of my Dear Wow, my daily editing and revising of words of wisdom, is going to be the editing. So for now, we are going to go ahead and use the highlighter and the annotations. I'm hoping that the state will get their stuff together so that by the time next year comes along, that those of you who want your kids to do their strategies on the computer, when it becomes all online, they'll be able to do so without any trouble at all. So we have a word of wisdom, and I tried to stick with a theme on all of these words of wisdom, a positive theme regarding love, just for this example. So when we read it, we should read it softly if we're taking a test or working with a partner, or it's better to read it loudly if we're reading with a group setting. We all read so we can help each other, or we read as a class, and it just depends on where you're at in the school year and what kind of students that you're working with. So as we read, we're going to underline or label. And a lot of you believe in underlining. Some of you believe in highlighting. What we'll do for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to highlight. So I'm going to read the entire sentence down here where it says, right after number 1, editing, fix the mistakes, plural, in the quote below and rewrite it on the lines provided. So one of the things that we're going to find out is that some answers are going to have more than one correct response. So in this case, there's more than one mistake. This was not mistakes made by an adult who wrote this quote. I found this quote that I liked and I made mistakes copying some habits that many students, middle school, elementary, and high school make when they write. So I suggest that we read everything in the entire sentence from beginning to end and verbalize the capitalization and the punctuation. Whatever we see, we're going to say. That way we can pay more attention visually, verbally, and kinesthetically to the punctuation. So we'll start with the beginning of the sentence. Capital. Underline capitals, proper nouns, and first words. The first word of every sentence needs to be capitalized. It is capitalized, so I don't need to do anything there. Capital, the mostest, and most is a superlative, and a lot of students think that you're supposed to put an ST with another ST. And so the rule is we can't have, when we're comparing two things, we can't have two ERs. When we're comparing 3 or more, we can't have two STs. So there has to be the mest or the most. So we're going to highlight that section. Let me see if I can get a darker yellow so you guys can see it a little bit better. There it is. Not quite yellow. So things that we hear or see that don't look right or sound right. And the idea of becoming good at editing is being really good with your eyes. And when you say the sentence, being good with your ears. And then we end up doing the sprinkler, because listening with my ears plus looking with my eyes equals learning. The more that I can train students to listen and look when they're reading or when they're paying attention to their teacher, the more they're going to learn. Thing and father. Since and, the rule for and, I'm going to call it opposites attract. If it ends with a consonant, the next word has to have a vowel sound. And father. So since farther is not a vowel sound, I'm going to have to put a farther. It doesn't sound right, but we know that something is wrong with that word and, so we'll highlight that one. We could also underline farther. So if we're talking about further away, something that's in distance, or we're talking about a member of a family. So if I look at the context inside the sentence, context clues for reading, I see child here. And so I'm thinking that it's probably talking about a dad, a father. So capital farther. Why did I put a cap on? Because they put a capital on farther. And you cannot name the you can't put a capital on father unless we're talking to a priest who's perhaps Catholic or Lutheran or anybody any other religion that says Father so and so, that then that's his title. So we would have to capitalize. But if you say, Father, I love you, it would be the same as Dad, I want to tell you that I really love you, Dad. If you're calling somebody Father or calling him Dad, if that's the title you're giving him, saying I'm talking about my father or my dad, you wouldn't need to capitalize. But in this case, we're just talking about a father. So the greatest thing a father can do. And so what we have here is word meaning. In the context, are we talking about the weather? It's not the soda, Mountain Dew. There's nothing about soda there. Do is something that's done, an action is to love him, child's. Since his child belongs to him, I'm going to probably think that that's his child, and child's plural is one of those irregular words. So when you change child singular to plural, we have to learn that child singular, hold up one finger, becomes children. And so I would fix that. And then we notice that it just stops. I call that reader's whiplash. There's nothing to stop the sentence. So if I was using my slinky method, the saggy slinky, capital, the greatest thing and father can do is to love his child, his children. Okay. So you can use child, singular, or children, plural, but we're going to hope that you're blessed with children. And so if you say period, then you can close the slinky. And you can sell those, they sell those slinkies 6 for $1 at the Dollar Tree, and that way your kids can practice the concept with the slinky. So when you rewrite it on the lines below using text, you would put capital, the space, best space, thing space, a space, father, singular, opposites attract. So if I use my spotlight, you can see where I'm at. A father, so a vowel with a consonant sound. Can do is to love his children, period. Whenever I use a word like best, that's an opinion. And so we can talk about reading skills, fact, and opinion. That's just this person, the author of this quote, this truism, this word of wisdom, feels that the best thing that a father can do is to love his children. So let's take a look at the second part. I wanted to make a preparation for students who are preparing in 9th and 10th grade to do expository and persuasive. And for those of you in 7th grade who are doing for expository as well, some of you, anyone from 5th grade and higher, can use personal examples, hypothetical examples, things that could happen but didn't, current event app examples, things that we'll talk about in a moment, or historical examples, examples about this topic, a father loving his child or children uh, in a historical fashion, a person before I was born who showed love to his children. So the question says to make a personal connection. Write a sentence or two what the quote means to you or to the world in general. If I read about what it means to me, then that would be a personal example. If I read about the world in general, I can either take the point of view or the perspective of the author, or I can just write in general, what do I think How do I think that this quote relates to the world? Parents, and this is what I wrote. Parents sometimes think that loving children means providing only the basics like food, shelter, and clothing. There's comma in a series, so we use comma after the first two and the conjunction and. Kids need love they can see and feel, like hugs, quality time, and words of encouragement and affirmation. So since there's another comma in a series, so we're comparing and contrasting reading objective, what parents think sometimes to what kids really need. And again, this is just my personal opinion because I wrote it. And the last thing for the Dear Wow is think of a specific situation, an event, a person, a place. I call it GPS, getting pretty specific, that could relate to the quote. Explain it briefly on the lines below. It can be from a show, a video, a song, a sporting event, etc. Try to tie the quote. Think of the word tie as an acronym. Tie as in topic or the title, the idea, either the main idea, the topic sentence of a paragraph if we're talking about, and the examples if we're explaining, the event if we're entertaining, the information if we're informing, the quote to your example in some way to the best of your ability. So on this first one that I did, I used an example from my own personal life, something that I know more. So if they were to say, write about the importance of family, then you could use that quote, a father loving his child or a mother loving her child, if the child who's writing the essay doesn't have a parent. In my own life, I've had the bad habit, opinion, of being married to my work. Sorry for that. I'm not sure if you saw that, but something fishing pole, instead of dedicating time to showing my kids that I love them in practical ways. Each of my children are different, comma, independent clause. So, we're making conjunction. I have to learn to love them in the way they need it, comma, not just the way that I like to receive love. So there's love languages that we all have, and I can't just love my kids in the way that I love to be loved. I need to learn to love them as a dad, how they should be loved. The one I want to close on is the one right before it on page 630. For those of you that are following along, again, it's this one just happens to be, well, let's see, not that one. I want to use examples go the wrong way, so that's why. Okay, so I want to go up to the one before. Again, if all your students had this can be done usually in 10 or 15 minutes at first, or it can be condensed to 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to do this activity, the writing. So again, that's the editing, fixing the conventions, the personal connection, a heart connection, my feelings and my emotions, how I feel about this quote, this topic, this teak, and my head voice is my thoughts and opinions about this. Because when you write expository and persuasive, for a 4, it says you seem to be writing from your own point of view and perspective. Your writing is thoughtful and engaging. And the only way you're going to get a 4 is if you connect with your personal. It says to choose your words carefully. So I will separate the W of words into 2 V's. We want higher vocabulary when we write. We want our voice. So on this personal connection, another example, some fathers misunderstand their roles and responsibilities. It's not enough to simply provide for your children financially. You need to say, comma, quotation, capital, I love you, closing, quotation. So there's the 5 cause of dialogue. Comma, quotation, capital. I love you, whatever came out of their mouth, closing, stop sign, k, closing, and k, quotation because you're done talking. The 5 dialogues that you use when you have the tag first with words and show love each and every day with your actions. So it's just not enough to provide financially to give money to your kids. Lots of kids can have money and get rich from their dads, but never really feel the genuine love that they need. Some kids, unfortunately, can get by with that. They really could care less about a father who loves with words and actions, but hopefully, most kids would want that in their lives. And so, what example? How can I GPS what I'm trying to get across here? How can I get pretty specific? And again, it's personal, something that happened to me that I can use to explain my idea, what we might call a thesis in 9th grade, a position in 10th grade, a controlling idea in 7th grade. And we would tie it all together, the topic, the truism, to an idea that we write about above, and then to the example that we explain and explode with that higher vocabulary and voice. Kane Brown has a song called Capital 4, Capital My, should be capital Daughter, that focuses on a dad trying to love his kids in a way that his own father never did. Since we tend to be just like our parents in positive and negative ways, it's critical to think about the bad examples we have received and learn from their mistakes, our parents' mistakes, and love our own kids in the way that we should when we come. So if we're talking from the perspective of a middle school or a high school student, then you would talk in future tense about how these things will hopefully happen. So what I've done for you is in this post, I've included both the lyrics to the song by Kane Brown, For My Daughter, and I've also included a link to the YouTube video where he just performed this song in August of this year when sort of the world opened back up. And the reading questions I want to ask is, what was his reason? What was the theme of the song, in your opinion? What was the big idea, the big message that he was trying to get across? What was the summary, if you want to talk about that, of this song? Now, a song can also be used as a poem, and a lot of times songs have verses and choruses, and poems have stanzas. And so if you were to think of each verse and chorus as a stanza, because the words in this song do rhyme, you could zoom in. And so my second question would be, what is the difference between the way Cain decided to raise his child and the way he was raised by his own father? And if I was to ask you a bonus question, based on what you heard in the video, how do you think he feels about his father now? And so if you answer a question and they require textual evidence, you need to either use textual evidence from the song itself, or you could use evidence from the video, something he said in the video that kind of makes you get an idea of how he feels about his father right now. And so this is going to open up a whole can of worms, idiom, to the fact that many kids live in single parent homes. They either just have the mom or just the dad, and Some kids might only have guardians, they don't have the mom or a dad, and we don't have to embarrass the kids by getting into deep discussions with every single one of them. We can ask for volunteers who wants to share about your relationship with your dad or with your mom. What connection do you feel you have that's positive, and maybe what do you have that's negative? Because unless we can relate our content, relationships must become before relevance, and relevance must come before rigor. Character, we can see a lot of character in this man with this song that he wrote and the father that he's trying to be. Character must come before content and curriculum. So there you have it. I've tied the editing, the read-vising, the reading world with the revising world. Revising is adding, removing, replacing content. It's based on the organization or the development of the content. We can add information using one of those four examples that we talked about. So you saw the page numbers. Those of you that have the Dear Doc Binder, this is my most recent version where I've added Dear Wow daily editing and read-vising, because reading is going to have to play a major role. It's going to be the biggest portion of the test for you students from 3rd through 8th grade. And it will still be a big portion for 9th and 10th grade, but you guys will still have an essay that's worth 16 points. Right about the importance of family. What about whether or not having an entire having a family impacts your life? You could think anything about family. The state tends to give topics that are relevant that we can all relate to. And so you could think of different topics, different prompts. So your students can write an idea called a thesis or a position, where you take that thesis and you build an essay around it, or you take that position and then with position that's persuasive, where you try to prove your point by giving reasons and examples that get the reader to think like you do with expository. You're just explaining, you just need to give your reasons and your examples and hopefully explain and explode them. You also need to explain and explode expository, but with the ending, the last word of persuasive ends with an E. So part of your ending, think of this, you want to encourage the reader to do something differently. You want to exhort change, make an extension that says, how would the world, my world or your world or the world in general, be better if we all implemented the idea that I presented with my thesis, with my position? And so there's an example of how to build from Dear Wow, daily editing and read-vising of wow. Wow. Words, words of wisdom, truisms, quote right there. So please share this with your reading teacher friends. If you have the binder, you saw the pages that it came from. You can use those. If you want, if you did buy the binder starting the school year, I'll go ahead, just let me know your order number that you bought it from, and I will send you that update that changes that portion to make that editing, revising, and reading connection, that we can do all three. And this is a concept that works great for students. They can't handle a whole passage because they struggle reading the content, they struggle comprehending a whole passage. How can I do that if I can barely make it through a paragraph and understand that? So doing the concepts with a quote or a word of wisdom is building from a foundation, starting at the bottom of the pyramid, and then we can work up to longer paragraphs, then to entire passages. That's just an idea. Take it or leave it. Please click like on the YouTube uh, video. Subscribe to the video. That way you can get updates. You'll get notified every single time that we put a new video up for reading, writing, and even math. And sometimes I have some videos in there about motivating and encouraging students. So God bless you guys. Uh, listen to the song. I'm going to include the link to the song that was in that second example for my daughter. Check it out, see what you think. And I hope that you like it, and I hope that makes you think about yourself as a mom, as a sister, as a daughter, a father, a son, a brother. God bless you guys, and take care.